The roof had fallen in long ago, and an enormous sycamore had grown on the spot where the sacristy had once stood. He decided to spend the night there. He saw to it that all the sheep entered through the ruined gate, and then laid some planks across it to prevent the flock from wandering away during the night. There were no wolves in the region, but once an animal had strayed during the night, and the boy had had to spend the entire next day searching for it. He swept the floor with his jacket and lay down, using the book he had just finished reading as a pillow. He told himself that he would have to start reading thicker books. They lasted longer and made more comfortable pillows. It was still dark when he awoke, and looking up, he could see the stars through the half-destroyed roof. I wanted to sleep a little longer, he thought. He had had the same dream that night as a week ago, and once again he had awakened before it ended. He rose and taking up his siruk, began to awaken the sheep that still slept. He had noticed that, as soon as he awoke, most of his animals also began to stir. It felt like some strange, invisible force tied his life to his flock. For 2 whole years, he'd wandered the countryside with these sheep, guiding them to fresh pastures and cool water. They're so used to me, he thought, they even know my daily routine. But then a different idea struck him. Maybe it was the other way around. Maybe he was the one who had gotten used to their schedule. Some of the sheep were always a bit slow to wake up. Gently, the boy nudged each one with his crook, calling them by their names. He was convinced they understood him. He'd often read them passages from his favorite books, the parts that really moved him. He'd share his feelings with them, the deep loneliness of a shepherd under an open sky, or the simple joys he found in the fields. He would describe the sights and sounds of the villages they passed through. But lately, his conversations with the flock had been about one thing, and one thing only: a girl. The daughter of a merchant in a village just 4 days away. He had only been to that village once before, about a year ago. The merchant owned a dry goods shop and was a stickler for details. He insisted on watching the shearing himself, to make sure he wasn't being cheated. A friend had pointed the boy toward that shop, and so he'd taken his sheep there. He remembered walking into the shop, the smell of wool and dust in the air. He approached the counter and said to the merchant, "I need to sell some wool." The merchant was a busy, stout man who looked at him over the top of his spectacles. He was about to ask about the price when he saw her. The merchant's daughter. She had dark, flowing hair and eyes that seemed to hold all the mysteries of the desert. She was the reason his heart was now racing towards that village. He had spent only a few hours in her company that day, while his sheep were being sheared. They didn't say much. He was a simple shepherd, and she was a merchant's daughter. What could they possibly have in common? But the way she listened, the way her eyes lit up when he spoke about his travels and the books he read, it was unlike anything he'd ever experienced. He told her about the vastness